Here we are, I think.
Are we there? I don't see the little live button I usually see, but I see us on the screen, so I guess we are live. Hi, everybody. So here
We
we
are
are.
live.
We are live. We know what we're
Live?
doing. We promise. We really, yeah. Huh. So here we are. This is the Damn Good Games presents a year in review. So it's December. It's almost the end of the year. It's holiday season. We have possibly one more game we're going to stream this year, but rather than try and force too much in, we figured we would take it easy this month overall on the games and just do some fun stuff this year in
Yep.
review, where we're going to rate all of the games we've played. We have a few comments and additives from other players that have played these games with us,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to throw those in. We're also taking questions from the chat about the games. One of our players is currently in the chat, so there may be comments from there that we read or pay attention to. G Scare 98, who has played a couple of these games with us.
Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, hey, fight guy in the house. So we're gonna start with the first one we streamed. Now, we had some technical difficulties and some errors. So the very first stream we ever did was Lost to the World.
Yep. It
Actually, no,
faded into the ashes of creation.
We did have a recording of it, but Don's hard drive bricked in early summer, and we lost that recording. So that first playthrough was a playthrough of Mazes. We also had a playthrough of Keepsakes Widdershins that we lost. So we did 2 plays of each of those. That way we would have something we could show everyone and have on the channel and do. So we're going to start with the first one we did. We did 2 playthroughs, so we got a little bit of extra experience here. But we started with a playthrough of Mazes. Don, give us a rundown. Where does Mazes come from? Who made it?
All right, so Ninth Level Games is owned by a guy named Chris O'Neill, and I actually just happened upon their Kickstarter one day while being an old man on Facebook, and I was like, hey, this looks really cool. So I sent him a Facebook message, and I was like, hey, we want to do a couple of live plays for this. Are you interested? And he was really interested, and I got a copy of the Mazes book and the PDF, and we just started rolling with it. And Mazes uses a polymorph system, which is really unique. It's a cool one, where whatever roll you pick is the die you roll.
Okay, I was going to say, explain it, Don. Tell them what it is, what you did there.
Yeah.
So we did 2 playthroughs of that. The players were myself, our friend Jesse. We also had our friend Justin play. And I think that was our group both times. No, we had Jubilee played with us the first time as well.
Yep.
So we had 4 players first time, 3 players the second time. And it was interesting. It was a little, especially for the first one we did, and me not being the systems nerd that Don is. Don just takes all these systems, and it's like candy to him, I swear. He just takes them and just nom nom, like just devours them and reads them and loves it. Now, for me, like reading it, is okay, but like learning it and actually doing it is like get a little bit of anxiety kind of going into this. So this has been a real growing experience this year for me, having to learn these different games. And part of the reason we have the format the way we do it for most of them, which is a part 1 and a part 2, is multifaceted there. One, shorter streams are easier to carve out time for and to get people to come on and be able to do. 2, doing it as kind of a live quick start guide helps other people see what it takes to get into this game and to get started and kind of how it works.
Yeah, because a lot of these we don't, especially a lot of the quick starts, we don't do much homework in the beginning. We just kind of dive in and go.
Yeah, and it's kind of varying. So like we've switched it up a few times. Like there was Don would dive in a little bit more on some, and then Don didn't have time, so I would actually dive in a little bit more. And there was
Hmm.
one or two that, you know, we were told how easy they were, and so we're like, okay, we're gonna test this. And we came in like I maybe read through the small little rule book once,
Hmm.
or not at
Exactly.
all. And Don did the same thing. It's like, okay, if they're claiming it's this easy, let's test it.
Yeah.
Like we have a lot of TTRPG experience between us, so that helps. But if we can come in and not be completely lost and confused, that's kind of a good sign
Yeah.
for
And
how it goes.
yeah, and it helps folks at home too to see the process of how do you jump in, do a new tabletop RPG and run it. Because a lot of
Mhm.
these indie games, they do one thing really, really well, and that little piece of a system shines really bright. Like a great one, like I was saying, we're going to go through lots of them, but I'll circle back to mazes real quick. One of the cool things I liked about it was you get that old school revival rules, the OSR, like classic D&D dungeon crawl kind of feel. But I mean, one set of dice will fill the whole table. Like
Mhm.
that's how it runs. Your roll is your roll. Each person grabs a different die, and that's going to be their role in the party, not necessarily their class, which was kind of neat how they split that up. But your role, what you focused in on, like the person who had the D4 critted the most, but their roles for things like doing
Yeah,
physical
yeah.
stuff was ridiculously bad. But yeah, it was a really interesting system. It was something I hadn't seen before,
Mhm.
and we're going to cover a lot of them that have these really cool like niche little systems that are really pretty, and it's a shame that more people aren't seeing them. And
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons why we do what we do.
Yeah, we do this to get more eyes on them. So yeah, I completely agree with Don on mazes. Kind of gives you that classic dungeon crawl feel with less rules, and but the ability to still feel that sense of impending doom and that urgency to do something.
Yeah.
Now, Jesse, what I'm going to start with now is God's work. I agree. Like we keep diving off before like we're talking about mazes and we jump off. So we'll get together eventually here. But yeah, like this is why we did this. Like I like using Twitter and using other sources, like seeing all these indie games that exist out there that I never knew about. I never knew when Don and I started doing this how many small creators were out there. And
Yeah.
then how many of them have games and how good a lot of those games are, how
Yeah,
simple
they're
a lot of those games are.
simple but also beautiful. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of these are just crazy streamlined, story heavy, like in your face great games.
And we're like, that's why we decided let's play some of these. Let's get in some there. And we over the course of this year, because we just started doing stuff this year,
Yeah.
like
I think we
earlier
started
this
doing
year.
the indie streams halfway through the year.
Yeah, we started with podcasts and a West Marches campaign, which we still have, and we still are accepting new players for that. It's
And
been
we
on a
need to
little bit of
get
a
moving
hiatus.
on that.
Yeah, it's been on a little bit of a hiatus because life happens, and we have a small pool of players right now, and so when people go on vacation, you don't have enough to get a game going. But we started with that, and we started with a Patreon and everything else. This is a year in review stream, so all this is applicable content.
Yep.
That's this is all
Everything is
applicable.
content, Jeff.
This is the year
All
in
of it.
review, all of it. And so we eventually got rid of the Patreon because Patreon was not a model that really helped us. Like actually, for Don and I, the Patreon made things more stressful.
Yeah, it actually kind of sucked because we started realizing we just didn't have the hours in the day.
Yeah, because if you have a Patreon, you need to like have content coming out every month for your patrons.
Yeah.
And we had content, and we were bringing out something every month. We had something new. We had podcasts. We had supplements. We had the West Marches game.
Yep.
But it was just like that stress of making sure we stayed ahead of the curve. So if something happened, we had stuff we could release when we
Yeah.
didn't have time to create new.
Yeah.
And we stumbled upon all these indie games, and this was fun, which is why we do this.
Hmm.
The Patreon was just there to kind of recoup some funds, and we like the funds we got from our Patreon. We took those funds and we bought books on Roll 20 for the West Marches campaign. none of the money we made off our Patreon went into our pockets. It went into materials
Oh yeah,
for
yeah.
our players. And go for it, Don.
I was just saying, exactly. Like, this is all hobby for us. And I think the Patreon was more of a hindrance than anything. And kind of like what Fighter Guy said here in the chat, like, it turns into this mountain of work. And then when you do get people set up for it, some of them, well, at least the people that we didn't know, would like show up and hang out or not pick the right Patreon level to actually get to some of the content they wanted to get to, and then get fed up and bail. And it's just not a really well, like, if you do subscription services, like if you're a commissioned artist and you do monthly releases for people and things like that, it's great.
Yeah.
But for our platform, it's just not a good fit.
Yeah. So like we're not bashing on Patreon at all.
Yeah.
Like
yeah. It just
Patreon has its place. It's good for a lot of people. But yeah, that's a very good comment. You've said that before.
It's so true.
Fight Guy Studio, also Brian, has said that before. Creators just pass the same $20 bill around. Like you get money from something and you usually invest that into something another creator has made. So it's just kind of making the rounds because we have stuff we're getting money for, which really excites us. But then we see this really awesome thing that someone else has created. So we put that money into their thing. And so they get that money and they get really excited. And then they see something that they like, another small creator did, or they're trying to support another small creator. And so it kind of does just get rotated around. But yeah, like Patreon, if you have a system or something in place that Patreon is good for you, Patreon's great.
Yeah.
It does a lot of work for you. It gives you a lot of awesome stuff. I learned a lot of things through it. And it takes a lot of the work out, but it is a massive amount of work, but it takes a lot of some of the behind the scenes work out, figuring out, you don't have to worry about billing. You don't have to worry about accounts or people's credit card information or any of that. That's all taken care of. Patreon just does it. All you have to do is release content.
Yep, absolutely.
But like doing what we do now with, streaming these games and not doing as many podcasts and not having as much content supplements that we create, the Ko-Fi or Kofi, coffee, whatever it actually is pronounced at. We had quite a few of these going around too when we were doing Brains and Brawn, is a better one because it's, people donate when they want to.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And if they want to sign up for a recurring monthly bill, they can, but they don't have to. They can do a one-time. We've got some content on there that is pay what you want. And it was a much better, more relaxed system because we don't have that pressure to release all this content all the time.
Yeah, this definitely isn't a hobby that's going to make us rich, at least not like that.
And and we didn't want to
a labor of love.
Yeah, we didn't want to put these streams of these indie games behind a Patreon paywall either because that kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Like if we make people pay to get this information, that's that's a gate, a barrier to entry when our goal is to get the word out there about these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we just discontinued our Patreon. The people that had been on there were still patrons, were people we knew from previous games or other things we had done. So we talked to all of them, and they have like boons and different stuff for the West Marches game they got out of it. Or some of them were like, no, it's good. We were just supporting you guys, which is awesome. If any of them do end up listening, well, one of them is George is here. Yes, George, we talked about the boons. You just haven't decided exactly what you want yet. But,
that's true.
We appreciate those people for doing that because the faith they had in us to be able to donate to us and help us.
It got us where we're at, to be honest.
Yeah, it helped us learn, it helped us grow, and now we know what we're doing. Well,
mostly.
We have an idea what we're doing. We'll go with that.
But it should probably get back to mazes.
Yes. Going back to mazes.
Mazes is a great system. What I did like was the dice simplicity. There's going to be other games we're going to talk about that had much greater dice simplicity, and I actually lean towards their systems more. But one of the things that held me back as a GM was constantly forgetting the darkness mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
The darkness mechanic in that is basically what the GM uses, or what the maze controller, I think is what they called it in that. What they use to create encounters and power their monsters, which is fine because it's like this pendulum thing where players would use or give the GM or the MC darkness in order to do things like create flashbacks or get extra gear or what have you. But that darkness pendulum was really difficult to keep track of. And the other thing that I kept forgetting about, and we didn't realize it until halfway through the second maze run, was that nobody was spending hearts in combat like they were supposed to.
Oh no, the second run we were remembering for the most
Yeah,
part.
yeah, that's right.
It was the first run we kind of forgot.
Yeah,
that.
yeah. But yeah, there's a couple of things there that if you're sitting around a table and you have tokens in your hand, like physical tokens, this game is definitely one of those where physical tokens on the table would make a big difference. We were using a virtual tabletop, which made it much harder to track, in my opinion. But that's just me.
So I'm going to jump in. I'm going to read. Jesse wasn't able to join us live, but we have a little bit of review from Jesse about mazes. Jesse said it was really cool how easy it was to use, and it's very entry level friendly. I personally differ a little bit on that opinion, but I'll get to that later. The way it ties in the darkness mechanic allows kind of along with a more joint storytelling method was really cool. So like Don already said, the party could set the darkness level based on, okay, we want some extra treasure, and treasure in this game is, like, okay, maybe it's an item that helps you in combat or out of combat, or maybe it's something you can use to help get past a encounter or situation.
You almost have to think of it like a Swiss Army gear slot that's just kind of in flux until the party needs it.
And so for each item that you wanted to have, it upped your darkness level by 1.
Yeah.
And, the more darkness level you had, the more power the maze controller had, and the tougher things could be. And also, there's a mechanic for crits in this game. And if your darkness level was high enough, nobody could crit.
Yeah, yeah. Your crown wouldn't function
how it's supposed to. That's what they called it, a crown. Yeah. And so there was a lot of give and take here about the players can set difficulty level from the get-go.
Yeah.
And now that doesn't mean that less treasures was an easier difficulty level either. So it really was the players could set the difficulty, and for using the treasures, it even tells you in the book the players to kind of collaborate and decide, hey, do we want to use one here to do this?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a group decision. So it's not like, this is my treasure, I'm going to use it. Now, if that's the way your group wanted to play, you obviously could. But there was definitely a very collaborative, work together focus in this game about how to do these things.
Yeah, for real. And in fact, one of the things that they talk about in there is with the loot, when you have too much loot, your loot actually slows you down, or your treasure actually slows you down, but all of your treasures affect everybody. So like if somebody had a potion of water breathing, there was enough for the whole group. But once you start losing too many treasure, it was only affecting one person at a time. So there's a lot of balance and strategy that went into the game. It was really cool in theory, and playing it, I'm sure if I played it repeatedly, like regularly, it would become second nature. But a lot of the token counting, I think, at least for me, was what was a major stumbling block, was just like keeping track of the different resource tokens, like the darkness or the hearts, or even the loot level, those things, because you always have to constantly like do some book work there.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, Don. Now the virtual tabletop on Roll20 we had did have cards for like hearts and stars and things that the players could take and give back to help keep track, which is really good, and that helped a lot.
Yeah, having that starting thing was cool.
But like I chose a Paragon, which was a D4 die, and I also was a magic user, like focused, and there are a lot of possibilities in that. So if you were just like a bruiser without magic, I agree with Jesse's thing about entry level friendly. But this also has a high level of complexity for doing different things as you get in there. So it grows. This is one you could make a campaign out of this game.
Yeah.
pretty easily too. This isn't like something that you can just do a one shot or a
Yeah.
short like few sessions. You can do that too, but
Yeah.
there's a way to make this a longer campaign. But
I
there's like a
also
mid-level complexity, I would say.
I also heard that they were planning on setting up a guide on doing a Mazes West Marches style game because it would be easy to drop in and drop
That's
out
true.
with the way the characters are set up.
Yeah, mazes would be a good West Marches setup style.
Yeah, you'd have to
It,
come up with new mechanics for like the home base though, and building up treasure and using treasure to buy things. But
yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be hard.
Okay, so we've gone through kind of how we feel about this. So
Mm-hmm.
now the rating for mazes. Don, how do you rate mazes on our DGG scale?
For me, I'm gonna vote that it is a good game, not necessarily a damn good game, because I really like it, but it's not super beginner friendly in the way it tracks resources and things. And there's a lot of collaboration. If it's a new group of people just getting together, they might run into some pitfalls early on.
I
What?
am going. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. What you
I'm
think?
I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna say it's a good game. There's a lot of collaboration going on. The book we had was not organized the best,
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
there was a lot of fluff that could have been cut out to make it easier to go because it was a pretty big document and all. But those that's kind of a learning curve you get through, and I think that they are working on improving that from what we
Yeah,
did. But
I
you know,
would definitely say that.
we got a bot.
Yep, we have a bot. I was just gonna say, as far as mazes it goes, I think that it really needs a quick start, like a 12-page
Mhm.
quick start guide
Yes.
that simplifies everything a bit. So like maybe cut magic down to 2 or 3 things, and just open up the optionality to 3 to 5 different options and just jump and run. Like
Mhm.
that would turn
Yeah.
it into a damn good game, in my opinion.
I I just realized mazes is why we actually started doing this whole thing with the quick start system because we talked about how a quick start would be so good for mazes, and so that's kind of how we got into the system we did.
Yeah.
Um, we're gonna talk about keepsakes slash widdershins next. That one,
Keepsakes.
keepsakes. That one did not follow our current system because we're still kind of doing it. We were doing these back to back, but uh, that one was one I don't even remember how we came upon it off the top of my head. But essentially, it's a game where you run around as, on a basic level, toys. Think of almost like Toy Story, but if humans see you, you don't freeze and die.
It's a funny,
Um,
funny side note. I read this thing that says my 5-year-old just ruined Toy Story for me. If any of the toys had ever died, Andy would just play with their corpse.
oh, and there's the
And
dark side, everybody.
imagine the horror on all of the other, like,
The toys.
you know,
So I'm gonna go in. Jesse gave us some information on Widdershins as well.
nice.
It's a really good mix of fun and seriousness.
Mm-hmm.
He felt like the game gives a better separation for players that aren't comfortable role playing humanoids. You're just a toy. You can really get outside of yourself and not worry about being self conscious about your role play because you're a toy or an item or something like that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
it really gives that level of separation to help with that. And I agree with what Jesse said wholeheartedly. Um, I went into this one with not a lot of like no prep. Really,
Yep.
is what I went into this game as
I'm
because
like,
I was
here's
trying
what you do, and
to.
you're like, really?
Yeah, yeah. Like I read through the rules. I think before we went live quickly, part like just the PC rules, and went through it and created it. And this we did two of these because we lost one again. I used the same character for both, just like I did for mazes, because I wanted to get more experience, just kind of playing the game and have something already set. Also, not having to create a new character took less effort and energy out of me.
Yep.
But this was pretty easy, and how you have different scenes and you have like a percentage that you had to beat to do something in each scenes based on if you succeeded, it went down, or if you failed, it went up. So
Yeah.
like if you were rolling horribly and you kept failing, your chance to succeed next time was higher. Each
Yeah.
time you failed, it went up, which I like that mechanic a lot because
Hmm.
sometimes dice just don't like you
Yeah.
that day. And so
Yeah.
this makes it so if you're having a bad dice day, you still get to the point where you're gonna succeed.
Hmm. I also really liked how they added in like their powers or magic or the actual keepsakes
Mhm.
themselves. Like each toy had a specific kind of keepsake, I guess,
Yeah.
or key.
Hmm.
Well, one was
Key.
a key, one was,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And they did or activated different things. Like the key one, if I remember it, opened and closed or locked things down. And
That was one of them, yeah, because
yeah,
there were different like
one was
classes of
stealthy.
yeah, there were different classes of your Widdershin based on different things. We talk a lot like our playthrough. I think we had one of each pretty much, which was really awesome. Nope, we were missing one because we had three in the one that's actually on VOD.
Yep.
All the VODs of all these games that we played are on our YouTube channel.
Yep. In their
So
playlists.
in the playlist, so go ahead and check those out if you're interested. Um, there are none of the games we've done that we think you should avoid. Like they all have different strengths and weaknesses, pros and cons. Some are better than others, and some are easier, more complex, but they're all worth a look to investigate. And all the creators did an excellent job creating
Hmm.
something that was fun.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, for Widdershins, it is a nice separation because you're not as self-conscious or worried about playing a humanoid or a person to go through. You're just a toy, so you can put a personality to it. And you could make this real serious, or you could make this like horror and gothic, or it
Hmm.
can be lighthearted and fun and
Yep.
goofy. There's a wide range of this one, and it all fits. Like this is a good one for horror spoofy season.
Yep. Absolutely.
But if you need like a one shot between sessions or something, or just something to like break the ice within your group, this is a good one for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I didn't have any major negatives to say about the system of Keepsake slash Widdershins. The quick start guide was my only problem with it. Is it was a bit messy.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely needed to be like, and that just happens when with indie developers, depending on the resources at hand. It was very much like a beta second draft kind of organization scheme, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it definitely needed to get hit with some editors, maybe like at our Cove.
The creators go. So my one kind of knock against the system would be you would roll for stuff, and
Yeah,
stuff was what you would expend if you failed at something to help you succeed or mitigate bad consequences.
it's also your hit
And
points.
yeah, it's your hit points too. And so there was like an exploding die feature on stuff where if you rolled a number, I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. It wasn't like
It's
the top
fours.
number. Yeah, fours. Like fours
If you
had a
roll
special meaning
fours,
in
they
this game.
explode.
Yeah, four had a special meaning in this game. So you could like we had the second game we played. We had someone that had I think they started with like 14 stuff,
Hmm.
and I started with three.
Yeah, yeah, that makes it tough.
Yeah, wide disparity, which makes it so that person with 14 stuff can expend that stuff to help them succeed and do a whole lot of things. And that person with three is like, eh.
Yeah,
I think it would benefit from
baseline.
a baseline starting stuff, and then maybe you can roll for extra stuff, or you
Yeah,
can, as what it is, each scene at the beginning of a new scene, you could
you
roll
roll.
for more stuff.
Hmm.
But I think for the first scenes, everybody starting with a baseline amount of stuff would be
Yeah,
a better tactic. So that way people could feel more involved and engaged with everything. Because like I was not wanting to use my stuff or try as many things because I actually no, I don't I think I had like two.
yeah, you had
It
a
was
very low
like
value.
yeah, I was like one or two. And so I wasn't trying to do a whole lot or extra because like we said, stuff was also kind of your health. And so if
Yeah,
it was gone, you're in trouble.
yeah, it
you
gets
know, if you got hit in combat, you would lose stuff.
Hmm.
So I think
Yeah,
a baseline of stuff and then rolling from new stuff each scene would make this a lot more balanced.
yeah.
You could still get the discrepancy of somebody getting a lot of stuff farther down the line, but you would have everybody involved equally from the start, which I think would be
Yeah,
better.
yeah. That's definitely a good way to, I would say, handle it, is have like everybody start with a baseline of say 8 stuff, and then move on from there.
So for me, keepsakes Widdershins, my DGG rating for this one is, I should have had to do like a drum roll effect for it. I'm gonna say this one gets a good game rating for me.
Yeah,
Like it's good to play even with the rules and effect as they are and the system it is. But yeah, as Don said, it would benefit from a little bit better of a quick start. And that one caveat I said about the stuff, I think improving that would
yeah.
probably push it to the next level.
I'm with you. This game, and I'm not joking. This game has crazy good potential, especially in its
Uh-huh.
uniqueness, to easily get picked up by another publisher if they polish it.
Yeah.
I'm only giving it a good game because it needs polish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is very much a diamond in the rough. I don't have, from a setting standpoint and a mechanic standpoint, there is absolutely nothing wrong with this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a pretty interesting steampunk, the oceans had been
Oh yeah,
evaporated setting. It was a fun one.
yeah, it
You should
was.
definitely pick it up. It was a really fun one. I can't even remember what I called it, but it was a good one. Something like
Um,
Misthaven or something.
yeah,
Misthaven Manor.
Misthaven Manor, that was it.
Yeah.
So for mazes and for Widdershins, Don ran the game for us instead of the
Yep.
creator. Our next one we did was Holdfast Station by
Oh.
by Luck Legends. Michael at Luck Legends ran this game for us, and Don and I were players along with Jesse.
Hmm.
We did this one in. This one ended up being done in 2 settings because we had a lot. Michael was having a lot of technical difficulties. Yeah,
Yeah,
George,
poor Mike.
talk about tech issues. There was a lot of technical difficulties, so we got as far as we could. I think we created the characters for our most part.
And
And
I
this
think
is
we started with the first like encounter scene at the bar, and it all fell apart. Like
yeah,
from a technical perspective, the whole thing just.
yeah, from a technical perspective. And yeah, um, so this time, before I read Jesse's comments and do my comments, Don, you get to start on this one.
All right, so Holdfast Station, and I know this sounds weird, but I couldn't recommend this more. I would say if you're getting new into TTRPGs and you want to get a group of anybody, regardless of their age group and maturity level, together to play a fun, interesting game that's all inclusive and so well scripted, it almost has like between a 5 and 15 minute average per step timeline. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is extremely well designed.
Mm-hmm.
But you play as a group of people working on an asteroid station, and it's about their lives. And the first section of that, because it's, I guess there's 3 different phases. The first one, Trust, is free for anybody to grab from Legends, and it's definitely worth grabbing, sitting down with your friends and spend an evening playing. Like it's, I don't know, the system is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's a good system, and it really calls on collaboration.
Yeah,
So Jesse's comment was he loved that there was no inherent bad person. There was not a
it's just
specific
people.
BBEG in this game. It was purely facing a problem rather than a personification of evil, which is a really good change of pace.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, George has a comment in the chat that this one built for kids or in general education, and yeah, that was Michael's kind of goal was he uses TTRPGs at Luck Legends if you want to look him up, and I heavily
Yeah.
suggest you do,
Yeah.
because he has
That
more than just this. We were going to have
yeah.
another game of his on this year, but he
He
did
does
a
a lot of good
Kickstarter.
work for
Yeah,
kids.
he did a Kickstarter and kind of like forgot about that we had scheduled it because it was so far out. And so he's
Hmm.
like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. Can we push this?" And we're like, "Yeah, dude, no problem." Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, he uses TTRPGs to teach kids, English and team building and different things, and that's kind of what this was. So one of the big differences in this one is, like Jesse said, there's no BBEG,
There's not
and
really any combat per
yeah,
se.
and then the focus on this is not like combat. The goal is to solve the problems without violence,
Yep.
and
It's about doing the hard things with other NPCs,
hmm
talking,
hmm
creating rapport, and trying to work with people even when they hate you,
hmm
and
yep,
doing your best not to lose your cool even when things don't go the way you want them to. Because, yeah, it's all about communication and trust, that first one.
yeah. And part of the character creation is creating, um, you know, like bonds and flaws don't necessarily work against you. Believe in the ore. Yeah, there's some comments. We had the Costners and the listeners. We're not going to get too much into that, but you can check out the VOD if you're really curious. It was pretty funny. Um, and you can also create connections with other PCs
Hmm.
that could help you add a die. And all you needed for this one was D6s. And if you could tie in a bond or a flaw in a roll, you
Hmm.
could add a D6. If you had one of the other players was there with you and you had a bond with them that applied, you could add in a D6 to try and succeed. So it really was about working together. There wasn't like this, there wasn't a min maxing, there wasn't a character that was specifically better at, could be built to be better at so many things. It was a real collaborative work together experience.
Yeah, your role gave you like one advantage, and I think it was like you got to re-roll a die if you expended it
Mhm.
once per session or something. But I
Yeah.
mean, really, it was all about just trying to get people to work together, NPCs and PCs. And ours unfolded in some interesting and strange ways. It was pretty
hmm
great. I'd like to return
And
to that one.
yeah. And like part of what it was it wasn't just Michael as the controller or central. That's what it was. He
Yeah.
was central. Like he helped guide the story along, but part of this game, and it's in the script, is the players. He asked us questions, and we decided what the conflict was in the
Hmm.
station.
Yeah. How long we'd been out, what conflicts are
hmm
arising, what's causing problems, all of those things, including some of the people that we knew that we'd worked with regularly that were NPCs. And they all got integrated and
hmm
brought into the forefront of the game.
Yeah, so some of those bonds with the players, as Don said, also those bonds happen with some of the NPCs there.
Hmm.
And so this was like you were building a collaborative story together, and like if like the controller has a script written into this game that you can follow, and you ask questions that helps prompt the players to give you answers, and they help create the world and create the story,
Yep,
which
absolutely.
adds a lot of buy-in, adds a lot of immersion into what's going on, because we decided what was happening. We went a little dark with some of this stuff, so maybe it wasn't as kid friendly, but you know, this is a game that you can introduce your kids to TTRPGs and get them involved and get them being creative.
Yeah.
Which, Don, limit me to another like minute or two here before you cut me off, or else I'll go for a little while. But creativity is like beaten out of us in school
Hmm.
because of the system of how schooling is, at least in the United States.
Yep.
And
You're not
like
wrong.
using this to teach really like fosters and encourages that creativity, and that's good even for adults. um, yeah, yeah, I will talk forever if I want to, George. Shush. Um, but yeah, just like it's a good thing. And like I took a class in college about creativity and marketing and different things, and I realized how much the box they try and put us in the education system in the U.S. really does not leave a lot of room for creativity.
No, it's just
Standardized,
it's memorization and regurgitation.
standardization, those test scores. Like, there's still options for creativity out there, and people take that and run with it and do amazing things, which is good. But in general, that's not something that's encouraged. The options are there, but it's not something that's encouraged because that doesn't give any points to the school system or school district for creativity.
Yeah, you can't put a metric on imagination.
Yeah. So I'm going to cut myself off from the
Yep.
rant there, so I don't go too deep with it. But
Gotcha.
Don, what do you rate Hold Fast Station?
Well, for me, I'm going to have to go with it's a damn good game. Primarily because it's well designed. Anybody can pick it up with zero prep and get friends together and start playing. And there is literally no stop from when everybody picks up their papers to when the game ends. Every bit of it is play from beginning to end.
Yep. Everybody's involved. So I agree. It's a damn good game for me too. And yeah, you don't really have to have a whole lot of prep or anything going into it. Like, you can just have somebody being the controller that kind of guides different sequences. But there's also something in this game called a drama clock that Michael has that builds up to some sort of confrontation or event or, like conflict, but not like a violent aggressive conflict necessarily, that you can use. Like, when he's doing this to teach kids, he purposely avoids violence.
Yeah.
It
And he tries
encourages them to find a way that's not violent to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. He tries to focus on the problem solving side because the way he put it is combat in like D&D is literally X carding things. All you're doing is creating a mechanic to kill off things you don't want to deal with.
Oh.
And when he said that, it was like somebody slapped me upside the head. I'm like, wow, that makes so much. Yeah, it makes so much sense. I didn't even think about that. That a lot of, and there's nothing wrong with having tactical combat games. I have plenty of 40K miniatures, and yeah, I'm a nerd.
Tactical combat.
Yep. I'm a nerd. I do nerd things. But stepping outside that box and playing a 3-hour game that just focuses on conversations between the NPCs and their ability to solve issues, that there is no BBEG. It's just the way things are unfolding and how they choose to deal with them. That really strengthens a lot of muscles that the more mainstream TTRPGs kind of shy away from. And that's why I give it a damn good game.
George kind of hits it on the head in the chat there. It builds good communication skills to go with the problem solving. If you've got like a new table of players together, like if I had all the resources and time and everything perfect in the world, I think Hold Fast Station, if I had a new table of players that I wanted to do a new like D&D session for or something like that, I would like to get them together to run 1 or 2 sessions of Hold Fast Station, because it will teach them communication, teamwork, and alternate problem-solving methods other than I go punch it in the face. And it really builds a team cohesion that, consistent schedules, a team cohesion, so they kind of like learn to work together and solve problems in different ways.
Yeah, it's a tough one though.
Yeah. So
because it makes you flex muscles you're not used to using. It really does. And I'm a forever GM, so sometimes my characters come off a little strange because I'm like trying to figure them out on the fly. And I'm like, great, I'm stuck with this one dude. I can't just jump ship and grab a different dude. So
yeah, we definitely recommend the Hold Fast Station. It is, if you haven't figured out the rating system yet by this, I'm not going to spell it out for you, but you should be able to figure it out. We're going to move on now to Roll for Shoes.
Yeah, this one was a stopgap. What do you think about Roll for Shoes, Jeff?
It was a good stopgap. It's sorry, just comments from George. George was a player in this game, so George, if you have anything to add to the discussion, we will make sure we say it and put it out here on the air too. we needed something to run for 1 week in between other games we were doing, something to
Yep.
fill the void, because sometimes you have, like, we started our random encounters somewhere around here, I think. So the last
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday of the month was our random encounters. So if there was only 4 Wednesdays in a month, we would do one game with two, and then we had an extra slot to fill, and that's what Roll for Shoes was.
Exactly.
It was simple enough that we could just throw it in there as a one-time shot, and we could still get it done in like the 3-ish hour mark.
Yes.
So Roll for Shoes, this is a game. All you need is at least one 6-sided die.
Yep.
You can share it. You can roll it multiple times. All you need is just one, or the ability to use an online roller. And you can do this without, if you don't have paper, like if you're camping and don't have paper or
Mm-hmm.
something, or even if all you have is paper, you don't need character sheets. It's really easy to track growth in characters and go. Like, there was not
Yep.
really much of a rule book to go with. It's just simple and wide open, and you can take it anywhere you want, put it in any setting you want.
Yeah. This one is usually a Comic-Con favorite or any convention favorite. The neat thing is you can dig up these rules on Reddit or whatever, but literally you start with one skill that's do anything one, and you roll 1d6. If you get a 6, congratulations. You immediately get a skill in whatever you're doing, 2, which you get to roll 2d6. And what you're rolling against isn't the same amount of dice opposed to you. It's always the same balance against you.
It's an opposed roll.
And every failure you get an experience point, which counts as a 6 for skill development, but not for successes. And that's pretty much the whole thing.
So it's really easy to develop yourself from nothing into something you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you fail, you get experience. If you roll a 6, you develop a skill. And you can use that experience to make new skills as you go. So, as George said, it was so fun. He's never laughed so hard. It was simple, and he loved that it was simple. And it gave him ideas for his own game that he's working on. And there's not a lot of rules for this, and all the rules are just opposed. So there's not like worrying about a +1 bonus or I have this stat or any of that. It's just you roll, and then the game master rolls, and you just try and beat the roll of the game master.
So yeah, a little side note and a little secret. I love the setting so much that I'm building a TTRPG around the setting.
So what we did is just kind of quick is we were all mechs or bots of some kind that had been like deposited on a trash planet, and we were like, it was just a junk planet, and our goal was to try and like get off this, like survive, get off this planet. So it was a lot of fun. It was a great stopgap.
And the way they did their skills was it was new pieces they were trying to attach to their bot forms, and how they rolled was based on how well it went. It was fantastic.
And this wasn't exactly in the rules, but Don did kind of a like
yeah, he did.
If you failed, it was you failed, but
yep,
or
exactly.
Like this wasn't really in the rules, but Don kind of took some liberties. Or like if you like barely succeeded or barely failed, you succeed, and it's like sometimes there was you did what you wanted to do, but a problem. It also had a problem.
Yeah,
or
succeed at a cost.
Or you did what you wanted to do, but it did not have the effect you wanted.
Yeah.
Like I give props to George for the different voices that he had to go through for this. So
yeah, poor George was losing his mind there.
If you can go and listen to this one, listen to George use his different voices for this. He did a real great job, and it was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed this one.
That game has probably got some of the best replay value. It's funny.
Now, for rating this game, this is not a game that you could do a long campaign out of. Because it's just going to build. You're going to have all these different skills. You're going to be rolling all this dice, And if you like,
it's pretty much like a 1 or 3 session game. Like,
yeah, it's a very short, like one shot or a few games to go with before you have to kind of restart. So it's not good for a long campaign, but it's a good in between or mix in.
mhm.
Um, oh, we're at, we're at roll for shoes. So Don, you give a rating first on this one
All right, so I'm
because I'm
gonna
not sure yet.
I'm actually gonna call it a good game. If I could click the right button here. The reason why I'm calling it a good game is it is a great game to get a bunch of people around the table and have some laughs and just get slapstick silly or whatever, but it lacks a lot of depth.
Mhm.
You can't really progress in a directed way. And the entire environment and the setting is solely up to the DM or GM's creativity.
Mhm.
There is no quick start or structured play. So you have to take this handful of 6 or 7 rules and just go with it. And it's in that sense, it's not super beginner GM friendly
Mhm.
because it's really easy to let something like that turn into analysis paralysis and just make you fall down. I am an improv DM slash GM.
Mhm.
That's where I live. And so somebody's like, I need to run this. I need you to run this game like in 30 minutes. I'm like, all I need is a piece of paper and some dice, and we'll have a game. I'm like the MacGyver GM when it comes to that. But anybody who really needs structured play, roll for shoes is probably not going to be your friend because it is unleashing chaos into whatever setting or world you're throwing the players in.
So usually I'm the segue guy, but Don, that was a great segue into me giving a rating for this game, as
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to rate this as a game.
It is a game.
It is a game. Now that is not a negative connotation to that. At this point, you should realize what our rating system is. But because of everything Don said, that's why I rate it. It is like if you have new players,
Yeah.
really good for them. Really good for them to be
New
creative and
GM,
do
not
stuff.
so much.
Yeah, new GM, not so much at all. There's a lot of openness, a lot of creativity in here, so it can go a lot of ways. It's not good for campaigns,
Mm-mm.
like, as we said, because Don said it, there's not a directed way to
You can't control
progress.
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't control how you progress. Like, what was it? I think my mech bot ended up with like 3d6 or 4d6 and like therapy skills because that's where I kept rolling.
Yep.
Like
Exactly.
the experience points let you direct some progression as you fail, but yeah, it kind of just it goes, but it is great for intermediate play. Like as a let's say you have your regular game going on and 1 or 2 players are missing and you're at a point where you can't move on without them. This gives you something that you can run in the meantime to still have everybody play together.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm also biased, so I agree with you in the fact that it is probably better off being a game. Also, it was brewed in the deep darks of Reddit. Somebody was like,
Oh,
hey, we want to make this game, or somebody have a D6 game, and somebody listed out this game that they homebrewed together, and that's how it goes. But yeah,
so the
I agree. It's a game in the sense that without a DM who's really comfortable with improv and players that are ready to go hog wild and get chaotic, this game will fall on its face. It's
yeah,
really based on the group that you're running with.
yeah, like if you have a new gym and all brand new players, this might not be the game to go unless you know that you're with a creative group of people who can just be imaginative and go.
Yeah,
Because
because
there's not a lot of there's not a lot of structure.
yeah, and there's no direct ladder of progression.
Mm.
So you're like a leaf in the wind, just tumbling. Like had to do it, had to do it.
Okay.
But yeah,
All right.
I agree with
So
that.
uh, I'm assuming that Brian is still with us, and this is the reason that Brian is still here. Our next game on the list Brains and Brawn.
Oh yeah.
So Brains and Brawn is something created by Fight Guy Studio, and we appreciate you for
Yeah,
supporting us
we
too.
really do.
But this was one. This is one we took on. We had a guest GM for this.
Mm-hmm.
DM Stasia was our GM for this game, and they had never run this system before.
Nope.
Don and I were players, and the Brian Fight Guy Studio also played with us. He was the third PC.
Yep.
And we did a little bit more campy, goofy with our character creations in the play, but that is not the way you have to play this one at
No,
all.
not even a little bit.
And we've been like talking with Brian ever since, and Don is actually creating a supplement to go along with this game, and there's a whole bunch of them. And yeah, Brian said, yeah, Stacia hadn't actually read the game until about a half hour before the start, because the things you learn when you're getting new into this and we had talked about
Duh.
having Stasia run this game, but we kind of dropped the ball on the confirmation for sure. And so, like, we gave her the out. It's like, okay, you don't have to run it if you don't want to day of, when we realized all this. But, she was awesome. She was a trooper. And Stasia, if
Yep.
you're watching this at any
Kicked butt.
point, you did. You really kicked butt. You did awesome. If any of you watching this don't know, just search for DM Stasia on Twitter or any other thing. That's what she uses. And she does a lot of like quick start stuff and helping new players get into games.
Yeah.
Sorry, reading the chat, sometimes it stresses me, but we did a kind of a spy themed game.
Did we?
Yeah. Like Austin Powers spy themed, kind of.
But I have no idea what you're talking about.
As in,
I
not
basically
serious.
played Gronk.
Yeah, as in not fully serious, but we were spies, essentially, is what it was. But this game I also kind of went into without a whole lot of prep, because it covers, I think, 4 pages. For the basic rules of the game, it's 4 pages. And 00 Keystone Cops. I think my other computer just died in there. Oh, that's okay. I got time. And there's just like character creation is quick. Very laid out, very quick, and very simple. And it takes into the first page is an intro into RPGs. That is correct. It just kind of and like I like that a lot, because if you're someone that's new to this, it kind of tells you what you're getting into and what's going on, and how these sort of games work in general. Any TTRPG, kind of how it works and what the flow. And the last page is a character sheet and some simple stats. So really, the rules are like 2 pages.
Yep.
And that was great. Part of the reason behind this is Brian has had a number of concussions over the years for various things, and having to remember a full book full of rules is problematic. And that's a problem for a lot of people, whether you have some sort of brain injuries or not. And so the simplicity of the rules is where a lot of the beauty of this game comes from. The simplicity and just how well they work.
Oh yeah, I actually want to run. I want to run this on stream. Yes. Yeah.
ADHD is true. All right, so Don, go for it. Jump into the rundown.
So one of my favorite things about this game system is that you really only need a single D10. I mean, you can have multiples, and the way the rating system works is Brian will probably correct me if I get this wrong, because sometimes I get it tripped up in my head, but having a lower stat is more indicative to having better brains, and a higher stat is better brawn. And so what you want to do is, for my character, who was very, 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 strong and physically and socially totally inept, wanted to roll under his score consistently. And people with brains, yeah, playing to type. Yeah, you're correct.
You get the golf clap for that one, Brian.
Yep,
I'm definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And for brains, you want to roll over your stat, if I remember correctly. And so you have a single D10 that is basically a number line, and wherever your stat is sitting is your brain/bronze score.
And you choose your stats. It's a scale.
Yes.
So what we ended up doing semi-intentionally when we played this game was I took the split. I took 5 in each. So you have a range from 2 to 8 because your total needs to be 10. You can't do 1 and 9. You can't do 10 and 0. It's a range from 2 to 8, which makes sense.
Yeah, because you're rolling a D10.
Yeah, and so I did the 5 and 5 split. Dawn did the 8 bronze, 2 brains.
Yeah, 3 to 8.
Or 3 to 8, 3 to 8. Sorry. Thank you for the correction, Brian. We appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely.
And then Brian did the switch, the inverse of what Dawn did. So we had the extremes and we had the exact middle. So
that game was so fun.
If you want to see how this works, the different stats, you get the extremes in the middle. And I like that we did that because it really showcased how it can work for different things.
Oh yeah, the versatility was great.
Yeah, and then you have different things you're good at. You choose, I think, like 3. What was it? Boons, I think it was.
Yes.
Things that you're good at, but you also had flaws. And just like with,
I think there were boons and banes, if I remember.
Boons correctly. And banes. That's correct. Boons and banes. And then just like
alliteration is awesome.
That's true. There's some good alliteration in this game. Excellent job, Brian. And your flaws can either work for or against you depending on the situation.
Yep.
Because you can add dice for different things. And there's also a mechanic for if you are prepared for something, like if you spent time preparing for something, you can add a die. And if you get a 10 on a die, you can get a bonus die that you decide to add to a roll at any point.
Yep.
But it's you use it, you lose it, but you only get one. So if you have one of those extra die and you roll another 10,
I thought it was when you rolled it wouldn't hit your stat. So like if I had an 8 and I rolled an 8, that's when I got it. Brian could correct me though.
Yeah, so you were correct, Brian. I had it backwards. You had it right. See, this is a good thing.
Yeah, it's when you roll your number. So if you have an 8 and you roll an 8, you get an extra die to hold on to use.
But
that's what I thought it was. Yeah, it's just one.
It's just one. So if you roll your number again, you can't get another one. So it really encourages you to use that. So that way you don't miss out, because it's one of those things where I think it happened once or twice in our game where we rolled the number, but we already had die, and it's like, oh. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. We did the 2-part setting again, where we created the characters, we started the story, went over the mechanics, and this was great. And
I had a lot of fun playing an idiot. He wasn't actually an idiot. He was just so socially inept.
Yeah, and if you look for Fight Guy Studio, so Brian's saying the on a roll die is a method of creating resource management, which is that's correct. Having that extra die there is a resource.
Yep.
So you choose, do I use it here or do I save it to use for a roll later? It's one of those things like, you as a player kind of get to decide, and there's pros and cons to both. Like using it right away or really quickly after you get it gives you a bonus on another roll. But if you don't use it, you've got it for an important roll later, but you can only have the one.
Yeah,
so it's like
for sure.
Use it in case you get another one. That resource usage is another awesome little point within this game that was really, I think, really well thought out and done. So there's also different supplements for this game.
Yep. I'm writing an adventure for zombies, and I'm actually planning on working on that through this weekend.
And what's really awesome about this is all these different supplements are different settings or different rule sets because you can make this game simple like the one we played, or you can make it crunchier with more rules. So
Hmm.
the different supplements that are had for this, you can do them a standalone, or you can combine different ones together to make it more crunchy. So if you like a little bit more structure, a little bit more rules, a little bit more complexity,
Hmm.
you can build that with this system, but you can
Yeah,
also make it simpler.
yeah, and
And
if I remember right, Brian also said that it's a good idea to have your BBEGs have like a separate brain and bronze score because they're specialists. It
mhm,
makes them quite a bit more challenging. And
yeah, so
you could do a similar thing with other aspects with stacking on supplements and making some
mhm,
really crazy cool stuff.
yeah.
Like doing a Deadlands zombies and cowboys would be awesome. It sounds like a really fun game. I actually
And
have a
so
setting for that.
uh, heavily encourage you to check out Fight Guy Studio and take a look at this. Um, he's got a lot of stuff going on. There's a number of supplements more in creation, and you
Hmm.
can put these together. There's like a Cowboys and Zombies one that's there, and you could combine that maybe even with a. I think there's kind of like is there a cyberpunk
It's being worked on, I think.
that's being worked on? Um, but there's a lot of them there to just combine together to make whatever setting or whatever game you want. And
Yeah,
it's really easy to put them together.
yeah.
So,
I still think you should call it science and sorcery. Stick with the alliteration.
all right. So, no pressure, Don, but just by the way this falls and the order we're doing it, you get the first rating for Brands of Brawn.
I do.
You do.
Well, I'm biased because I'm in the middle of working on a zombies adventure that's going to be based. It's kind of like a little bit of
Ah, there we go. So zombies, Lovecraftian horror,
Old
Old
West
West. There's a
ghost hunt.
ghost hunting one, which I really wanted to try and do something in Halloween season for that because that would have been really fun. Cavemen and superheroes
We
are
should do
what
a
currently
Christmas
exists.
zombies episode.
Santa and his elves have to face off the zombie horde.
Yep. Or Santa got bit, and yeah.
Oh, don't stop teasing me with the Firefly-ish one, Brian. Just stop. I get real excited every time I see that.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah.
so Don,
Well,
drum
I'm a
roll.
little biased, like I said, because I'm currently working on an adventure that has to do with zombies and keeping your home HQ together while stuff happens. And yeah, it'll be fun. But I'm gonna have to go with it's a damn good game.
I figured you were going there. But honestly, and I'm not just saying that because Brian's here either, I agree. It's a damn good game because of the simplicity, but
Yeah.
also a structure that makes sense and is really easy to figure out. And like, because we showed it, we had a brand new GM and two
Hmm.
brand new players, and
Yep.
we were able to figure this out and pick it up over the course of the stream very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great game. And the difficulty is built into the character sheet. So what I mean by
Mhm.
that is you know based on your roll whether you succeed or fail. It's that
Well,
same $20 bill.
it's that same, yeah, it's that same that Brad money is that same $20 bill that's going around. But yeah, like the system, like it's once you get a handle on it, it just makes sense,
Yeah.
and it doesn't take a long time to get a handle on it because you have to roll over for this or under for this, and
Hmm.
it's one of two things: it's a brains roll or it's a brawn roll.
Yep. And then you have your gear slash boons and you have your banes. And there you go.
Yeah. Now there's and you can make a mini campaign out of this one too.
Yeah.
Like there's some area for progression and discussing with the game master to do that. And so
Hmm.
this is good for a one shot. This is good for a short to medium campaign as well.
Hmm.
And it just makes it's easy, it's simple to figure out, and like as Brian told us, and looking at it, you can make it as simple and do the base game that we did, or crunchy and
Hmm.
add on these different rule sets to do
Yeah.
different things and make it a little more complex.
Yeah. It's definitely made to be either streamlined or tinkered with in every way you can see fit. And it's really well done. I mean, the fact that we could pick it up, have a really fun game without tripping over the rules even a little bit, and just
Mhm.
rolling with it was, I mean, it was perfect as far as I'm concerned in that way. And it does one thing really, really well. It divides out your character's abilities based on either their mental focus or their physical focus. That doesn't mean that you can't do both. It just means that doing focusing on one over the other is going to make one of them a little bit more difficult to succeed at.
Mhm.
And so you can build a lot of interesting characters in that way.
Yeah, like I really liked having the even split that made me kind of even at both,
Hmm.
and so it gave me an equal chance of success or failure no matter what I was doing. But yeah, so there's something for everybody no matter what their play style is as a player. If they're conservative, if they're risk takers,
Hmm.
or if you want to play a really smart character or just a really strong character.
Yep, exactly.
All right. So yeah, we'll be looking for that support in our inbox, Brian. Uh, moving on, the next game we get, and I'm pretty excited to talk about this one because there's a lot in this one. Uh,
Oh.
Don's like, oh yeah, that one. Veil of the Void Reforged. So
Hmm.
Veil of the Void was the first iteration of this game, and Reforged is kind of like a version 2 almost.
Yeah.
And this one is more of like a sci-fi type outer space, that sort of setting. And George also played this one with us, so he says he wishes there was a better quick start, which we will
I,
get to.
I
But if you have more to add, George, go for it. Just hold on, Don. I get to start this
uh-huh.
one.
I know. I know.
Um, and I honestly, when we started this one and I looked at it, he said it was beginner friendly. And I look at the PDF and I just go,
You're like, how?
mm-mm, because it
How?
was like 180 some pages, I think.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, that's a player's handbook.
It is a
Like,
player's handbook.
that's a lot. How is this beginner friendly? And one of the things that actually like does go along with that beginner friendly is it is easy to read.
Hmm.
It flows. There's not a lot of wasted space or fluff. There's
Yeah.
still descriptions, there's still like suggestions for things,
Hmm.
but there's not a lot of fluff and it just flows. And so
Yep.
one of the things that Trevor did with this was he actually has a minor case of dyslexia himself. And Trevor is the creator. He ran the game for us that Don, George, and I played. And he referenced people who had severe dyslexia and others for their opinion to make the book
Accessible.
accessible.
Hmm.
And they gave him ideas for like this is something that we stumble upon a lot that you've got here. If you do this instead, it's going to make it a lot easier for us to read. And so there's a lot of accessibility in this game that many people may not even really notice or recognize. But the fact that it was thought about and the fact that it was put in there is like A plus grade. And it came through in the reading for me, just reading it and how it flowed.
Hmm.
Now, there is a lot of content. And as George says, the book looks daunting, but it was an okay read. And I'll let Don talk more about the quick start because that's his thing. He likes to talk about that for quick starting.
So I'm pretty sure there was a quick start available and we
Mhm.
just missed it.
Yeah, it
There's
wasn't something
actually pre-made templates and everything that
that
we could
wasn't
have grabbed.
it wasn't fully like it was on the link tree, but it wasn't shared with us, and we didn't look at the link tree.
Yeah. So yeah, the only thing that bothers me a little bit, and it's not really bothersome, the game does exactly what the creator intended to do. and it has a lot of dials that you can turn and customize, which is great, but it's not super new player accessible in my opinion. It is, but it isn't. There's a lot of analysis paralysis that can occur, and I think the templates and the quick start really fixes that. And so if we had done it that way, I think that I wouldn't have spent so much time cross-referencing things and reading. If you watch that stream, I think the first stream, I'm pretty much dead quiet the entire thing, reading and learning and filling out a character sheet at lightning neck-breaking speed. But so it's a good system. It is.
Yeah. So George got super excited about this one. He knew what he was doing right away and picked his spells right away. But he loved how the classes had their own spell list attached to them, and their class, and not like attached to their class, not an entire separate section. So that's something, I really liked. It was right there with the class, so that way you didn't have to flip between
yeah. But there was
for a certain really popular game, if you have your class is in one chapter and all of your spells are much later in the book.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. There definitely was some analysis paralysis in there for me too.
Yeah. So it's like the quick start and the templates make it beginner friendly if you choose those templates and that's what you run with.
Yeah.
Because the decisions are made for you, it's there, it's ready to go.
Yeah, it gives you a good introduction to the system. And then you can dive in full bore. It is definitely, it's crunchy enough that it makes Jeff's brain very happy. I'll put it that way.
That's a good way to put it. I like simplicity, but I also there are times when I like me that crunch. The majority of my TTRPG playing time was in 3rd and 3.5 edition D&D.
And 3.75 a little bit.
And I did a little bit of AD&D as well, and so there's a lot of crunch and a lot of customization you can do in there, and that exists with this one as well, because you can take a class that you have in this one and just follow the direct line of that class.
But or you can branch.
Yeah. Oh no, Thaco. Yes, George. Oh no, Thaco.
To hit armor class of 0.
Yeah, but in this Veil of the Void, if you were for instance, I was a smuggler, and George, I don't remember exactly what you were. You were some sort of caster, but there were class abilities. As you level up, you can take abilities from other classes. So, I'm a smuggler. I could have eventually got myself naturalist. Okay, thanks, George.
I was a mushroom,
and Dawn was the mimic. But each class has abilities they get as they level. But you can choose as you level, instead of to take something from your class, you can take something from another class. So there's a high level of customization and crunchiness if you want it, but you don't have to take it either. And because what Trevor said is he wanted everyone to have access to magic if they wanted it, because magic is just fun.
Yeah, so magic is a blast.
Yeah, so he wanted everybody to have access to magic if they wanted it.
Yeah, no, I really like his setting too. It's really well done. As somebody who likes mixing together the kind of the D&D-esque in the middle of I don't know, when you mix together things like sci-fi elements along with the very much class mechanics and magic that you would get in a Shadowrun or D&D aspected game, it gets really fun. And so I did enjoy that.
And this game was a D6 system, so all you need was D6s.
Yep. It was all about building your dice pool. I mean, It's a very intuitive, very easy to pick up game. The only issue that I ran into it with was some analysis paralysis here and there. But I mean, and that being said, with the amount of crunch that is in the system, combat does move slower. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because it was very clever, and the way that combat was set up was really neat. It was very, he put it, very cinematic. You could actually the roles inform what's being described very well, and that's something you don't find very often, especially in crunchy game systems. That's the best way for me to put it.
And he has a lot of good supplements on the link tree for this. just Veil of the Void Reforged, SDS Publishing, I believe. And if you're interested just in like the game and how it runs, you can watch part 2, because in part 1 we just got through character creation and we just got like an intro to what the game was going to be. So part 2 is just all game. You don't really miss a lot of gameplay by not watching part 1. Part 1 is us doing our interview with him, creating the characters, and asking questions about mechanics and things like that.
Yep. Exactly.
I've gone back and forth on this one a lot as far as my rating, but I am going to rate this one a damn good game. Part of the reason is the customization, the level of crunchiness you can choose or not choose. And one of the big things for me, even though it doesn't really affect me personally, is the accessibility that Trevor has put into this. And George also gives it a damn good game rating. Like it's not necessarily the most beginner friendly thing you could do. And there is that level of analysis paralysis if you look at everything. I do agree with that. But the accessibility and then what they've done with this, and there's a new supplement coming out. There's going to be a Kickstarter, I think, either right now or early next year for another kind of expansion to this. Yggdrasil, I believe is that's how you say it, at least Norse wise, I believe. If I'm wrong, I apologize. Feel free to anyone correct me in comments or chat. But that's how it's pronounced in my D&D game, which is also dealing with the World Tree currently. That's been running for 4+ years. But yeah, it's a damn good game. That accessibility is such a big deal, and Trevor does a lot with this that makes it easy to read, and the flow, which is the editing and the layout, is a big deal that a lot of people don't think about.
Maybe.
And yeah, it can make a big difference. Like mazes was a lot of extra fluff, a lot of repeating itself, and the organization wasn't the best. And it had around the same amount of overall pages as this did, but this was much less daunting and a lot easier to get through. Veil of the Void Reforged, less daunting, easier to get through than mazes was because of the accessibility and the editing. So great job by the editors, great job looking at what it was and having that flow. All right, Don.
No, I agree with you. And one of the big things that caught me was how much painstaking time that the character or that the author put into it, really, for not only character development, but doing things like referencing all of the PDF with links to where when you click on a specific area in different parts of the book, it immediately goes to those parts where they're all hyperlinked.
A very small thing you don't think about, but so helpful.
Yeah. The only complaint I had was the PDF or the character sheet that we had was a little wonky. But I think that just has to do with what PDF editor you're using at the time. And I think the updated sheet was better.
Yeah.
Because we actually went to the site and downloaded the updated sheet, and it was way better. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to have to go with Damn Good Game 2. And this is probably one of those that it's definitely on my list to add to my library. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do a long campaign with it because my life is super busy. Maybe in 5 or 6 years it's possible, but I might be able to do, let's see, maybe a 5 or 6 session campaign. Yeah, like just a full adventure range. We could live stream that.
Yeah, there is a lot of room in this one for progression and high level characters, and so doing a long campaign in this is 100% doable. Or doing a short campaign or a 1 or 2 shot like we did is also easy to do.
If I did a campaign with it, I think I would do it in 5 session seasons almost. where it's like do one adventure and then pause for a little bit and then do another adventure and pause for a little bit.
All right, so Travis, if you're listening, or anybody else that's involved with Veil the Void Reforged, thank you. We had a
Yep.
lot of fun. It was awesome.
And it's worth picking up.
It's worth picking up. It's worth checking out. Watch our VOD and decide for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next we have Hexing Tide.
Hexing Tide was great.
This one's you, Don. Start us off.
So, if you ever wanted to scratch like that Hellboy / just hanging around being monstrous creatures kind of itch, this is definitely the game for you. The rule system is based on, a lot of it at least, is based on the original Greek humors called the chemoi. I'm probably ruining that, but
that's right.
But yeah, and so the rule system itself feels strange and alien, which just adds to the entire feel and theme. And it's kind of like an old school Dark Horse, like Hellboy style comic. And that's kind of how the game plays out, is almost like living through the comic, going frame by frame in the different settings and solving things while different dangers and perils are growing. And it's definitely an interesting game.
Like, yeah, that Hellboy, that's kind of what we lean into, is the Hellboy type aspect. Monstrous beings, kind of like protecting the world or the general populace from other monsters.
Yeah, I played as a zombie person, kind of. Basically, my ghost was trying to chase and guide around my zombie body. It was super great. The Geralds were a great, fun set of people to play.
Yeah, Peach joined us as a player for this one, and they were from Venezuela, and their character definitely had a little. They took some Venezuelan folklore to help build their character, which was
fantastic,
amazing, and awesome to have. And they also had a great question in part 1 that they asked about. They asked the creator, because Will, the creator, ran this for us. Don and I played with Peach, and yeah, it was awesome to have Peach be a part of it. And I definitely hope Peach can join us again for some future games. They had great insight, and just having that different culture, that different viewpoint.
And they were a super amazing guest. Very courteous.
Yeah, very courteous.
Just overall great.
Yeah, a lot of fun, and very like collaborative too with all of us, which was, for like having not a lot of experience doing anything with them, it was a little bit nerve-wracking at first, like wondering, is this all gonna mesh? And it was just no problem from the get-go.
Beautiful. Amazing.
Yeah. So Peach, if you're watching, thank you, and please join us again.
Yep.
Yeah, the feel of this one, like using the Google Slides, having the almost comic book style feel to it, and just the mechanics of having different things you could pull from. Like, if you fail the check, you could add to some possible difficulty later on to make yourself succeed, or you had to roll against things. There's a lot of complexity here.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain this, but it wasn't super difficult, at least with Will running it.
Hexing Tide. Yeah, we're back on Hexing Tide.
We're on Hexing Tide. I think you missed Veil of the Void was what you ended up missing. But it wasn't super hard to pick up and run with.
No. The system itself is pretty simplistic, but the concepts, they're like I said, they feel alien, and that's what you're kind of going with, I think, because you're playing these monstrous beings, so they live in a world that's dictated to by different rules, and so it made it feel strange. Like that to me was a really cool selling point, because it didn't feel like any other TTRPG I'd played.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's unlike any other one I'd ever played. I would 100% play it again. I think I think it's not necessarily the greatest for a brand new GM.
No.
But if you're an experienced GM, doesn't matter what system it's in, if you've GM before and have some experience, as long as you study up on the game and learn the rules and different mechanics and theatrics
Yeah.
involved, you'll probably be okay.
I
But
100% think that this game is one that needs a pretty structured quick start. A good like 15 or 20 page quick start that includes the scenes and slides and starter characters.
he does have starter characters. Starter
Mm-hmm.
characters are a part of it, so
Yeah.
those are awesome.
But I mean, just because of the way it plays and the strangeness of it, I think that it would be important to have some kind of pretty, I don't know, pretty structured quick start, in my opinion.
That's fair. Just like a little one. All right, so Hexing Tide Dawn.
I really liked it, but I'm gonna have to go with a good game. Mostly because there's some things in it that caught me up funny. Like I thought they were one thing, but they were actually another. And it was just the way the passions and the perils and stuff are set up. Like the perils themselves in particular. The one that I think it's hardship is actually supposed to be your inventiveness. But in my mind, the way I viewed it is you faced hardship a bunch. So like you're more resistant to things. But you know, I think there needed to be more examples of use for some of those perils in the system because your actions are basically perils in that, where you had, what was it, danger, hardship, and isolation.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the danger one's pretty obvious. It's how well you fight or you know how much you're used to facing danger. But isolation and hardship, those two could have been, I think, more well defined with some examples of how they're used.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I've gone back and forth in this. And I do want to say for anybody listening that
It's
like the rating system we're using is just kind of a little fun based on our game, like our name.
yeah.
And like all of these games, we would suggest you try
Yep, they
all of
are
these games.
fantastic.
All these games are good. They're fun. They have each one has different pros and cons. So the rating system is not meant to deter you from trying any of these games.
No, it's a good game.
Yeah, we're being honest with our how we feel about these games in there. And I'm gonna go with Don on this one and say this is a good game.
Yeah. And it does what it focuses on beautifully. I just think that there's a couple of barriers to entry for brand new people that might struggle with it.
Yeah, the little barriers for entry, depending on how things are worked out in combat. Combat can take a little bit of a long time, which you will see in our part two of it. But it was a lot of fun. I would
I loved it.
100% play it again, and like to experience it. But this is not one that's easy to just jump right into.
Yeah.
Without doing some like prep beforehand as a GM, and it'll take a little bit of studying an intro as a player too, to kind of understand, like Don said, about the different Ickers and the different die things you assign to. But the mechanics and the system in general
are pretty quick.
Pretty quick. It wasn't that hard to figure out or that difficult to go through. It was just decide and run with it, and you have a point total, so you can focus on some things or spread them out.
Yeah. I also did point out to Will that for your portents, I think all of the portents should start with a 1 instead of a 0 in them. And my argument to this was because I had a danger of a d6. And so every time I rolled against my portent, I would automatically succeed as long as,
That's okay. I had to shut that off for a second. I'll be right back. Keep talking.
Okay. I think that with an additional 1 in the portents, it gives even the people with a d6, because you had to try to roll under your portent or whatever. And I think it was the base level is 6. So if you didn't have any points in your portent that were consumed, your D6 would always succeed. And so I was running into a situation where my character was always succeeding on their portent checks. So if you added the 1 point, at least there was like a 1 in 6 chance that it would fail, even for people who were specialized in being kind of safe for that die roll. At least that was my experience with the situation. I'm riding solo for a moment. Yep. But yeah. The bio waits for no one. Yeah, it's definitely fun. It's one that I definitely want to run for folks. I have an idea for kind of like a like 1920s noir kind of hexing tide game. I think it would be super fun, where it's like this investigation agency.
I don't know if it's just a glitch since I closed it off, but the good game for this one's not underneath my.
I didn't know if you wanted the good game there yet. You disappeared too quick.
That's a good game. Sorry, it's just we've been at it for a little while, and the dragon's milk is running through me.
Yep. How to milk your dragon.
Yeah. That was our dragon's milk was like when we were doing our podcast recording. Mm-hmm. That was like what we would drink to kind of loosen ourselves up a little bit to be able to do it.
Yep. I actually need to pick some more up. I haven't had some in a while. I wonder if Costco's still selling it. They were selling it for like $7 for the big bottles.
Cool. Yeah, they have it at the co-op again right now, but that's only going to last until it starts warming up because the beer guy there doesn't understand that people still like stouts and dark beers even when it's warm. Anyways, digressing, we've got one more game so far this year that we've done. That we're going to review. Don and I were players for this. George also joined us as a player for this. But Ben Newbon has a game called Overgrown. And amazingly enough, there was zero influence from Avatar, The Last Airbender, on this game. Because we talked about that on the stream. That was one of the questions I asked.
Which blows my mind.
But what you do is you take a base animal
and hybridize it.
Yeah, you add other animal parts. It could be just one other animal part. It could be multiple onto this. And so Don, George, and I all created large-sized animals in the end, which was something that Ben had never experienced before, was everybody having large animals. But this one was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, it's a great game.
It really showcased like being able to be creative. And Ben is aware of this as well, but the only knock really is this is not a good game for a long-term campaign.
No, you just mutate too much.
Yeah, because of the progression and the mutations, like it's eventually you'll get so powerful that
it's unsustainable.
Yeah, it's unsustainable. You succeed at like everything you do.
But if you're doing like a 3 to 5 session adventure, perfect game for this.
Or even like a little bit longer than that could probably work out. And as George is saying right now, it's very intuitive. And George kept raving about how he loved how the rules were on the back of the character sheet. So you have the character sheet with all the information and the rules that you need to know as far as what you're rolling and how we're on the back. So well organized in that effect. Just everything you needed was right there. Like if you didn't have the rule book as a player, if you had the character sheet, you had what you needed to play the game to know.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, my owl had tentacles for a while. And not by choice.
Yeah, when we played this game, Ben experimented with a new mutation mechanic for if you fail at something, you develop a mutation that works against you. And so our stream was actually kind of a play test.
Yeah.
In the same, as well as playing with the rules and adding more. So that was a really really interesting and a lot of fun
Mm-hmm.
because if you failed and got a mutation, if you succeeded at 3 rolls after that, you would then overcome the mutation. But you had to have 3 successes where that mutation worked against you for that to come into play because the mutation took like a -1 to your roll for having that mutation. But
Mm-hmm.
if you succeeded and got 3 successes where that mutation was working against you, then you were able to conquer that mutation and get rid of it or, make it into something else.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I thought that was really neat. I think that there should be a second set of mechanics there where you can like not only conquer the mutation, but like you said, take it over, make
Mm-hmm.
it beneficial.
Yeah, I think that might be a good additive too. Just have to look at it, but like everything, like just kind of as is. This is a good one for a one shot or a good one for the short sessions, like we said, a short campaign.
Yeah, 3 to
And
5, I think, is about the max before it just goes nuts.
yeah, because if you roll a nat 20, you get another evolution, another bonus to your creature. And so if you can roll a lot of, crits, a lot of 20s, because you use a 20-sided die in this, and that's all you use.
Yeah,
And, you can, if you roll out of 20s, you can progress very quickly. So
yeah,
there's also, and, Ben acknowledges as well, there's a potential that becomes after a few sessions, you have a big disparity in your players if like one or some other people are rolling a lot of 20s and somebody's not rolling any.
yeah.
Which any of you who have played a TTRPG know that is easily possible.
That's how I roll when I'm a player.
Like statistically, it should be pretty even for everyone, but that's never how it works out.
Oh no.
And so like as a GM running the game, sometimes you would have to like give the players maybe a bonus for a multi-session game to keep them on par with the other players,
Yep.
which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is a little bit extra thing you have to think about as a GM for this game with what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, this is another one though that's really setting agnostic. You can put it wherever you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Like ours was a spaceship that we were
Yeah.
on, but we lived in like a forest or a jungle that was on this spaceship.
Yeah, it was like a world ship. It was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
and you could easily place this in just in the savannah, just in a jungle on an alien planet, in the
Mm-hmm.
past, in the future, in current times where all these animals are in a city. Humans may or may not be involved at all in this game, but the characters are animals, and so that also kind of is the comment I read from Jesse about Wittershins. It gives you a little bit of separation as a player to be playing something that's not a humanoid, but still an intelligent creature
Yeah.
or sentient creature, I guess. Doesn't this have to be intelligent?
Yeah, that's true. Somewhat intelligent.
Somewhat intelligent. So we had, like I said, we had a lot of fun with this one. We had a few inside jokes about. I took my base animal as a tiger, which was a Siberian tiger, and it was Siegfried Schrodinger. I'll let you figure that one out on your own if you don't know.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, it was interesting. It was a lot of fun, and the simplicity of the system leaves a lot of narrative in there for the GM to build and even the players to build, and leaves a lot of openness for what you wanted to do.
Yeah, for real.
So for me,
Dun,
if
dun,
if
dun.
if you look at this one just as like a one shot or a mini campaign, which is what I'm looking at this as for my rating.
Uh-oh. Freezing up.
A damn good game for me.
What was it? You're freezing up.
Okay, yeah, I saw the loading. I gave this one a damn good game for me.
You too, huh? Yeah. No, I really love Ben's game.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if you heard me or you were just trying to kill time. Um, yeah, like there is some drawbacks, like the progression system can get out of hand pretty quickly, or if you try and take it too long, which we talked about.
Hmm.
But like just the simplicity of the game and just the creativity involved, and just being able to play an animal or
Yeah.
create your own thing. Like if you're an
So,
Avatar fan, you will enjoy this game because
so
you can make anything from Avatar or your own thing.
one thing I would definitely recommend to folks that want to play this, like let's say you have a setting and you really want that setting to shine, what you could do with this game system is you could do short 3 to 5 session games and have them as different episodes and have the setting as the thing that remains static. So each time it's a different short story, and all these short stories are building out your world. And that's kind of how the old school sword and sorcery did things. And you can follow that same kind of pattern and keep the adventures really cool. So I mean, there's ways to get around the long campaign
Mm-hmm.
problem.
And yeah, there is, and I agree with that. But it's just like the progression for the same characters. You have to have
Yeah,
new
yeah,
characters.
yeah. But you could do it over generations too. Like you could have one
That's
party
true.
member, and then the next generation is their kids and or neighbors, and you can have it all turned a heist into a smash and grab. Yeah, I think we kind of did
Yeah,
that too, to be
that'll happen.
honest.
Um, so that's the 8 games that we have done so far this year.
Yep.
We have more coming up. We have a list that we are working through right now of more indie games that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to keep this to small creators or independent companies that
Mm-hmm.
are on the smaller side because getting the word out there, getting them exposure of what they've got is kind of our goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like
Absolutely.
you're not going to see us doing a actual play for this of like D&D or Pathfinder or White Wolf or the big popular ones. Those are
Yeah.
what we're going to stray away from because they've got plenty of marketing and plenty of reach already. We are
Yep.
wanting to get these smaller ones out there to get them seen because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of good ones that a single person maybe created or a small group of people created, but they don't have a marketing team and all these funds to promote it.
Yep. Exactly. So if we can help get the word out even to a few extra folks, that's a few extra folks that can spread the word. And that's what
Exactly.
we're here for.
So yes, give us a like, a subscribe, a follow. This VOD will be put up on the other
Tubes of
site.
you.
Yep. Since it will disappear from here in about 7 days.
7 days.
If you have a game or someone that has a game you think they would like to either run on our stream
Run.
or have us have on our stream as we run it,
Yep.
like drop us a comment, drop us an email, see us on Twitter, anywhere else, and we'll take a look and we'll add it to the list.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always looking for new creators that need a voice and a spotlight. So just do it. In the
Do
words of
it.
the legendary cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
Do it.
Just
So yeah, I think that's what we got for today. The other thing for our year in review is we've got a few DGG Presents Random Encounter episodes that we've recorded
yep.
with our friend Brian, a different Brian, Bjart the Bard,
Yep. Yar.
where we just kind of talk about current events in the TTRPG world.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of 1D&D discussion, also things about current discourse or what's going around the community, and some things about summons
Yep.
and pets.
Yep. Don't let them fool you. Pets can be evil.
So check those out if you just kind of like the discourse. If you're someone that wants to join in on our random encounters or would just like to maybe play even in some of the games that we're doing,
Yeah.
we are recruiting like a pool of players because we're looking for anyone like we're trying to like include some diversity in these games,
Yeah.
BIPOC, LGBTQ plus, any of that, or just any people that are interested in general, just to get more people
perspective.
playing these games, more perspective. Exactly.
Yep. Because not only does representation matter, but also perspectives, individual perspectives of other people. The more eyes we get on content for indie creators, the better their products will become because they're out there to listen to the audience.
And on top of that, one of the best things you can do, we talk about this on one of our random encounters episode, is give small creators feedback.
Yep.
That includes us on what we're doing. That includes any of these games that we're showcasing. Giving them any kind of feedback is good. And even if it's negative feedback, that is still good. That is still useful. Now, I say that meaning if you're saying bad things about the game, like you don't like a mechanic or something else, that's negative. But if you just say, yeah, it sucks, that's not helpful.
No. But
Tell
hey, I
them
really don't
why.
like this because.
Yeah,
If you can't
because
add a
why?
because, it's not an opinion, it's an attack.
Yes. but that's a really excellent way to put it. Have a because or have a why.
Yeah. Because if not, it's an attack. It's not an opinion.
And just because like that because or that why is true to you and it's not true to someone else doesn't diminish what you're saying either.
Nope. Not even a little bit.
And it doesn't diminish what the other person might be saying.
No, opinions are based on diversity of perspective, and diversity of perspective gives you perspective or creator perspective on how they're developing things.
Yeah, not everything is going to work for everybody. That's just a fact of life with different upbringing.
I mean,
perspective or
look at all of the different games that we just reviewed. Some of this stuff worked for us in some ways, and some of it won't for others. And some of these games that people are going to watch this and listen to, they're going to be like, wow, that's really interesting, or that's not for me. That's just how it's going to work.
Very true.
But yeah, so, George, definitely check out the article that's going to be on BRC's website here in a while. It'll be great.
Here really soon we'll have, we've started a GM roundtable discussion, and this was started from the Cove Discord group, where we have a topic and we have GMs kind of share their opinions on that topic, and we try and make sure that we have differing viewpoints and opinions. Brian Bjark the Bard is going to host it on his blog to start with. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be out sometime this month. The goal is before Christmas.
I may have written some opinions about pets in that one.
Just a few.
Yeah, they had to cut my article size down by a third.
Yeah, we're just trying to keep it short and readable is all it is. But Don also did a really good job of like putting in an intro, and that's something that we were gonna have someone me write an intro for, and we were just kind of looking for the opinions. So Don did a full article pretty much on his own.
Sorry.
Hey, no, it's fine.
I didn't know what the format was gonna be, so I just submitted an article how I would.
Yeah, that's all part of collaboration and learning and figuring out as we go. So if you're a GM and are interested in participating,
my hats off to our editing team. They do a great job.
Yeah. So if you're a GM and should be participating in maybe these roundtable discussions, you can join us on the Cove Discord. Send a message to Bjark the Bard, and he'll give you a.
And if you can't find him, you can message us on Twitter, and we'll message him and get you the Discord link.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's it. We've gone through and all the games we've done so far. We've got some more coming. Hopefully later this month, we'll be running a very interesting
You still there?
For adversaries.
Yeah.
And it's kind of based on a card deck.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
So we'll see.
I need to finish reading through it. So are we wrapping? All right, start rhyming, Jeff. I'll get a beat going. Ready? No? Are you still there?
We've got a cool issue going on here. The OBS shows me, but doesn't show Don. So
So yeah, that sounds like Jeff. Well, I guess it's a good way to start off.
There we go.
There, it's a good way to end the year the same way we started it, with technical problems. But yeah,
OBS does this sometimes. I've noticed that not just with us, but with other people as well. Um, there's a in December, in December thing going on. I just did an interview for that the other day with a creator, and yeah, we had an issue with OBS there as well. Same issue just happened here.
yeah,
So it's just sometimes you get a glitch with OBS, and there's nobody's fault, just happens.
yep.
So actually, that's something that that game I interviewed them about they created might be one that we stream and I run since I've got some information on it.
Nice, very cool.
But it's called the Grand Pug Adventure, and everybody plays as a pug.
Oh, nice.
So a little bit of maybe foresight there is something that's going to be coming down the pipe, hopefully, probably at the beginning of next year. So yeah. Any parting words for everyone, Don?
Just that we're going to be hopefully having quite a few more um, indie games out there. There's also a couple that I have coming, I hope, that I might be able to review and actually add in. One of them is Red Sky, but I don't know if we're going to add that one or not. They were pretty successful with their stuff, and they're a little bit bigger of a company. I'll just have to do some reading. But it's
And
basically a complete deconstruction and homebrew of 5th edition.
and maybe towards the next year sometime as well, maybe around spoopy season again, Don might have a game that he's working on that we might be able to throw on the stream too.
That's true.
A little bit of Dire Straits possibly coming to you next year.
Yep.
But all right, thanks for tuning in, everybody, to the review. Drop us any questions, any comments about it that you have. We're more than happy to put you in contact with any of the creators of any of these games if
Yep.
you can't find them yourselves. And like, regardless of what our rating was, any of these games we do suggest because each one does something well and has its spot to be used, has its little niche for what it can be really useful and really good for.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. With that, I think we should head out. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right.
We've overstayed our welcome, I think, at this point.
All right. See you later and stay legendary, folks.
Till next time.